G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now in this video I'm going to show you how I built this interior. Look at all that. There's a lot going on in there, consoles and buttons and a dashboard and all kinds of things, and there's quite a bit of photo etch in there. So I'll show you how I finished off the Airfix Sunderland interior, and it's really not that hard. Well, there's a bit of swearing involved, but I've cut all that out, so don't you worry. Nanobots will not get upset. But yeah, we will get into all of that, talk about a whole lot of other things that I want to do with this, and as usual, waffle. Yes, I'm sorry about it, but it's my style. All right, let's get on with it. Roll the music. All right, on to doing the interior and fixing up a few problems. Now, the fuselage was not joining together very well once this assembly had been put in. Back when I just had fuselage halves, it really mated up nicely. I cleaned up all the edges. So what I had to do is I had to actually make this hole a little bit bigger so that this turret sort of assembly here would fit in, because otherwise this wasn't drawing up. You see, it'll draw up nicely now, not a problem at all, but it was basically pushing out. And that was basically because just the way things fit together and the way Airfix insists you sort of pre-assemble a lot of this. The little blobs on there, yeah, they didn't need to put those on now. Possibly should have left them to later because they kind of get in the way when you try and put the fuselage halves together. Now, at the front here, the cabin, yeah, I've done quite a bit of work here. And what I needed to do to facilitate that is I had to get my interior out. I had it cemented in to do the previous video so that, you know, it looked good and it was easy to sort of see what was going on and to get that profile spot on. But that is a problem when you need to put photo etch in there and also correct an issue, which is this edge here. Now, if you see the previous photos, it was really thick and it also didn't sit very well together. So let me reassemble this so I can show you what it looks like now. Okay, so what I've done now, you'll notice that is a lot thinner. Because what I've done is I've got inside there and I've scraped all that, and so I've got that now so that it's really quite good. It'll still be out of scale, but it's not what it was before. It doesn't have the horrible step down. And what I will do, a trick that I've found, is that you paint these edges here black. And the interior for this wasn't just green. There is green chromate on some of the bulkheads and things like that, but they actually covered up and painted over that green chromate or darkened it so it looks almost black. So we'll have a pretty well a black interior, and that will hide a multitude of sins. But you can see here how I have got in and scraped and scraped and scraped. I just used a round file, and because there's no way I could have done that with the interior still sitting there. So yeah, all this needs to be done really before you start messing around with an interior is get the hull halves correct. I also found that with the pre-painting, the tolerances on the tabs was so tight that that also was pushing the hull halves apart. So it was a good idea then to get in with a pin vise and just clean out the paint from inside of those. Ideally, you should try not to paint over them, or if you can, put a little bit of tape or something over them when you're painting. So yeah, this kit actually has reasonably good tolerances, but it is thick, and once you add paint and if your parts are slightly pushing out of shape, right, then you have an issue. Now here, you could probably solve that whole fit issue here if you actually sanded this down a little bit. I'd say take 0.5 millimeter off that, because you'll see it sits a little way away from that edge there. So when you're assembling this, if you can, try and remove a bit so that that pushes up hard against there. If you do that, it should fit really nicely with the other side, and you won't have to do my fix if I actually had to sand in there. So there's a few little tips. Of course, with those top things on, it's a bit of a bugger to put back together. You've got to sort of do a bit of a thing. They actually went together really well that time, yes, to make me look like a liar. All right, with this in mind, what I need to do now is look at putting the photo etch into the interior. Now I've blocked in some colours here, just subtly. I've put a bit of a dark brown on the seats and I've got the floor a bit darker. It's closer to what the cockpit should be. But I've also done another trick, which a YouTube commenter reminded me, is that to hide the thick plastic, right, even though I thinned it out a bit, it's still thick, is to put a little black edge. And I've actually used anthracite, which is a very, very dark grey, because I don't like using jet black on models. It never looks realistic. Anyhow, let's put the vac form canopy on. And there you go. The thick plastic seems to disappear, doesn't it? It just has a seamless edge now. I've still got to feddle that vac form a bit. They're a bugger to work on, but probably with a bit of white glue which will seal it in. This is only a dry fit. The whole thing should come up a treat. So I think that is a roaring success. And we can really see in there, it's a bit hard I know on camera, but honestly I can see in there, I can see everything that's going on inside. So that lets me use that very thin part, even though the Airfix plastic is still a bit thick. Now, one of the problems with this photo etch that I bought is for the Italeri kit, and it's very similar for the basically special hobby kit as well. So to fit it to the Airfix kit, we have a few issues and we have a few problems now. One is the dash, right? Cockpit dashboard. As you can see, very different shapes, very different sizes. So what I'm going to do is I'll stick the base part here, because you've got two parts. You get the part here, which is open so that you get some relief to all the dials, right? And then you get the base part, which has all the dials, inside of them. So it's kind of nice. None of it will probably ever get seen, but anyhow, we'll do this. So I'm going to cut out the base part, fit it as best as I can to the Airfix part, and then trim it very carefully to shape, and then we'll see how that goes. And after a bit of black paint, there we go. That looks like an instrument panel, doesn't it? Yep, that'll do the job. So that was fairly easy to cut to shape using the Airfix part and then put the Eduard photo etch over the top. All right, let's get on with the rest of the photo etch. There you go. You can just see that dashboard. Won't focus too close, but it'll just be visible. And I've had it actually a test fit, dry fit inside the fuselage, and yeah, you can sort of see it from some angles. Who knows once the canopy all gets painted up. But the interior is coming along and it's nearly finished. All I've got left to do is add these little side pieces, which are photo etch. They're coloured photo etch off there. Now, they're not really the correct colour because the green chromate was actually blacked over if you have a look at all the photos. But it'll do. It's something. Because we've got really nothing on the Airfix kit. And it goes just in here, underneath the windowsill and to the end of that canopy sort of edge. So about there, up a little bit maybe. It's got a little bit of sticky on it, not much, because most of the sticky came off with the going onto the backing cardboard. It's pretty bloody hopeless. So I had to scrape off as much as I can. You can still see there's a bit of backing paper on that one. I've got to peel that off. But it'll fit there. I'll just need to straighten it up a little bit. But it will fit there. And that'll give us something for our interior, right? It doesn't add much, but it's something. And we paid for the bloody thing, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to do the one for the other side, show you how to bend it and glue it in. Now I've cut the part away from the fret, this photo etch part, but all that gunky sticky stuff, I think I've got it off. Well, it was the paper. Amazingly, the sticky stuff is still there. I can't get this bit of paper in the middle here out. That's very stubborn, but as long as it's flat, yeah, it's flat. As long as it's flat, I think we'll get away with it. And yeah, that's it's reactivated. Put your teeth in, Harry Houdini. Reactivated to the stuff. Now I've got a few little sort of bumpy bits here on the edge. They're sort of annoying, so I've got these lovely scissors, which are designed specifically for this task. They're Xuron photo etch cutters. They do a lovely job. Bit hard on a curve, so we might leave that one and go to the file. It's not much of a bump there. I mean, this is hardly going to be seen. I'm only doing this for the video. If it was just my model and I wasn't doing it for YouTube after having said, I'm going to do a photo etch interior, I'd probably looked at this and gone, nah, bugger it. It's hardly worth it. I'll just, you know, whack a few dials on the side or something like that. Because you really see nothing. You see nothing of it. So, yep, that's all nice and smooth now. All right, this part. Now, it's flat, of course. It's photo etch flat. But the interior is curved. So this part here has to bend out a little bit. So you can just sort of bend it a bit with your finger until you get a bit of a curve. All right, it doesn't have to be too obtuse. So a bit like that, because you've got to get that curve underneath where the front of the cockpit canopy is. So this should fit just underneath that lip to the edge of there and around there. And it does. So my tiny bit of a curve makes it sit in there. If you don't do that curvy bit, you try and put it in, it just springs straight out again. So at least that's going to help with putting the CA glue. In fact, the stickiness on there from Eduard is holding it in place. But I'll add some CA glue, lock that in nice and tight, and then we'll get on with something a bit more interesting. I'm going to make a center console. Now the Eduard photo etch does provide these little pieces here, which are actually for the center console, and there's a whole lot of knobs and things here. So I don't know how much of it we're going to use. Now obviously the instructions are for the Italeri kit, so they're talking about the actual plastic part that's there, and then you add it over the top. See, there's a plastic part that Italeri have. So then this long piece goes over there, and this short piece over there. So I'm going to try and fabricate just this sort of funny shape. It shouldn't be that hard. I should be able to work it out from photos, and I'll put on as best I can the little Eduard pieces and throw a few knobs on. It'll break up the interior because really there's not much happening between those seats, and when you put the canopy on, you end up with this big space. So we'll make a little center console there. I've cut out the two tiny pieces of photo etch here as shown in the diagram, and I've found a piece of, it's about 8mm tubing that I had, which I bought to actually work on one of my battleships, and that's going to be the curve that I want. It's as close. Now, I sort of tested it by putting it into my interior and see, yeah, you know, that's a thing. It's going to sit there. It sort of looks about right. I don't want to take too much off it. I mean, ideally their drawing shows that it's a quarter of the curve, but for the purposes of making this easy and the fact that it's hardly going to be seen, it'll, if anything, hopefully just the knobs will show. Yep, that's what she said. And I'm just going to take a bit off the bottom. So we'll take that off first. I'll just trim a bit off the bottom. So this way it just sits. Okay, it'll just sit like that. So I've also made a tiny little, it's 4mm wide and 2mm deep and 2mm high, because that's the size, as far as I can tell, it should be. I've made that out of 2mm stock plastic. So we'll glue that onto there first. have put tiny little knobs on there. Okay, there's one with knobs on. And it's no mean feat. I tell you, it's no mean feat. There is quite a bit of swearing required, but you can do it. So, yeah. So, folding those little guys round wasn't too hard. I just bent them around my round file and then just super glued them on. Not a problem. So, I'll try and show you how to do one of those. But if the swearing gets too loud, just put your hands over your ears because I don't want to get demonetised. Right. So, what you've got is these things, right? They are minute. And you've got to fold them. Yes. Here we go. We'll give it a try. I've already lost one trying to do this. So they cut off reasonably easy from the photo etch fret. So that is the easy part. Now you've got to flip that over because you're going to fold. The knob at the top is actually coloured. There we go. Holding that in place. I'm now going to try and bend that over there. Yes. Luckily they're got a scribed line for it. It's over. Once it's over, you just want to push it flat. Now we have the little fella all ready to go. Now the trick now is to try and get it on your tweezers before it falls off. Okay. Quickly dip it in your CA glue. And then find a knobby location, one of these slots. Here we go. Here we go. That's one. So we edited out the cussing there, thank goodness. Yes. And then just got to try and get it vertical. Once it's a bit tacky. I go back afterwards after they set in position and just dab a few more dollops of CA glue so that hopefully they're not going to escape when they're inside. So I'll add a few more of those. There's supposed to be 8 on the top and 4 on the bottom, but I already managed to lose a few. So there'll be as many as I managed to put on here. That'll do. There you have it. It is tiny. It is so tiny. But I wanted to do it, and I'll never do it again, not at this scale. It's too hard. The method I normally use with pins and dobs of white glue is so much easier. So half the knobs have been lost to the carpet monster, but those that have survived, they made it in there. So there we go. You can see the console, you can see my knobs. I will have to paint inside that thing, but at this stage I don't feel like making it solid. I don't think I need to. I think the view that you'll see something like that. So that'll be fine. It's got knobs on. That's what she said. So there you are. After all said and done, is it worth it? Well, I'll do it once, and there it is. I'll never do that again. Not at this scale. It's too tiny. It's too hard. But look, you can sort of see it when the canopy goes on. Here's a photo. Not so good. Not so good. But the console and the front dashboard, I've done them. Okay, they're probably over detailed for this Airfix kit because, you know, this Airfix kit's pretty basic. But I thought I'd give it a go. And it does lift it a bit. And in some ways it was fun. Well, after all the swearing. Once this is all buttoned up, then I can start looking at the cannons and putting on the metal barrels, that sort of thing. But we've got to get to this stage first. So as you can see, you hardly see those little side photo etch things that I put in. They're there. I'll see how I go if I can pick this up. It won't end in tears. They're there. They're in there. Right? You'll never see them. You really need a light shining directly in there to get to it. That's not going to happen. And someone said, oh, why don't you light the whole interior up? And yeah, it was World War II. And, you know, they're trying not to be seen by the enemy. I don't think you want your whole cockpit glowing with fluoro light. No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. All right. Well, that's it for this video. As usual, do the compulsories. Like, comment, subscribe. Those things are wonderful if you can do them. They really help this channel out. And, of course, you've got bags of money. Buy me a curry. That'd be wonderful. Feeds me, keeps Bass going. It really helps us out. That's it for this one. As I say, next time we will finally do the buttoning up. Then we'll get onto that tricky camo scheme. I'll explain why I've actually gone to all the trouble of painting this white before I've even glued it together. There is method to my madness. I will explain it next time. But for now, it's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.